And good afternoon, producer Susan. Well, happy day after 2 days after summer solstice, which was what, Sunday, June 21st?
Yeah, Sunday was the solstice.
The longest daylight, the most daylight hours of the year.
So yeah, here's the depressing thought is that we're going to lose a minute of daylight now.
Yeah, but I think it's 15 hours and 35 minutes of daylight we had on
Yeah.
Sunday. And it was also Father's Day. And I've
Yep.
actually, our quote of the week is going to be a Father's Day quote, a quote about fathers, by the way.
Did you have a good Father's Day?
I did. I had some relatives come and visit me in New Jersey. Did a bunch of fun stuff. So yeah, it was a very good Father's Day. Great weather. Got to go outside. Did some cooking out. So great. How about yourself?
Yep. Went and visited my father for Father's Day.
Well, good.
Did Father's Day things that he wanted to do.
Okay. Was he glad to see you? Did he
Yep.
recognize you?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about what we're going to try to talk about today. And by the way, I've got two very long topics. So I've normally I try to do 7 or 8 things. I think I've only got 5 or 6. I've got two topics that I'm going to really long on today. All right. So today's the 23rd. It's Tuesday, 2 days after the summer solstice and Father's Day. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you about some stupid gun regulations that a California county sheriff has imposed on people who have concealed carry permits, and who is suing him over those stupid regulations. In honor of Father's Day, our quote of the week is a long one. It's from one of this century's most well-known political figures, and why some of the people might call you a racist if you just quote some of the things he said without giving the attribution as to who said it. We'll tell you about, I don't know if heard this, but Tulsi Gabbard has submitted her resignation as the Director of National Intelligence. And just before she left, she has released a bunch of documents and what she's revealed about Dr. Fauci's involvement in the creation of the COVID virus and why he can never be prosecuted for that involvement, including the lies he told to Congress under oath, which was perjury, about that involvement, which he denied but has proven to be false. Were you aware of that, by the way?
I was not aware of that.
Okay. We'll spend just a little bit of time explaining the mess that the United Kingdom is in and how it got there. In our You Can't Make This Stuff Up segment, we'll tell you which Democrat controlled library and museum requires a photo ID to enter on certain IDs. Remember, the Democrats oppose the SAVE Act requires photo ID to vote. Well,
Yeah.
there's a Democrat controlled library and museum that requires a photo ID if you want to enter on certain days. Talk about um, is that
Hypocritical.
hypocrisy or irony? I don't, or both. All right. Um, and we'll tell you how soon Social Security, every year the trustees of the Social Security Trust Fund issue a report to Congress where they tell about the health of the program, how much money they have, how long it's going to last, and when it's
Mhm.
going to run out of money, and what happens if it's allowed to run out of money, if Congress doesn't act to fix the problem. And we're going to tell you about that. It's really quite striking, and you should be angry that Congress has let it get this bad this for this long. And finally, our taxpayer lead shot this week is from Lantana, Florida, where two armed thugs break into a guy's and get into a shootout with the homeowner. Um, and it's an example of why you should practice your shooting skills because in this case, the homeowner lived, but not all of the thugs lived. All right. Here's a quote I want to quote. I'm not going to tell you who said. I believe you probably know who said this, but I've posted these statistics before without saying who quoted it, and I've been accused of posting fake racist propaganda. Well, this is a speech given by one of our this century's most well-known political figures, and here's what he said. Of all the rocks upon which we build our lives, we are reminded today that family is the most important. And we're called to recognize and honor how critical every father is to that foundation. They are the teachers and the coaches. They are the mentors and the role models. They are examples of success and the men who constantly push us toward it. But if we are honest with ourselves, we'll admit that what too many fathers are missing from too many lives and too many homes. They have abandoned their responsibilities, acting like boys instead of men, and the foundations of our families are weaker because of it. You and I know how true this is in the African American community. We
Mhm.
know that more than half of all black children live in single parent households, a number that has doubled doubled since we were children. We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves, and the foundation of our community are weaker because of it. Now, without naming him, do you know who gave that speech?
I I feel like I know, but I can't. I'm not positive.
Well, again, when I've quoted those statistics about more than half black children grow up in a home without a
Hmm.
heart, by the way, that percentage today is 74%, and
Hmm.
that they're 5 times more likely to live in poverty, commit crime, 9 times more likely. Well, that speech was given on Father's Day 2008 by a gentleman who was then a senator in the United States Senate, and his name
Yep.
was Barack Obama.
Yep. Yep.
Barack Obama. But when I've quoted those statistics without attributing them to Obama, I have been labeled
Mhm.
I've been accused of spreading fake racist propaganda because
Mhm.
people just don't want to believe it. But do you believe those statistics?
I do believe them. Yes.
Yeah, because when you don't have when you don't have an intact family, um, the gang becomes the surrogate family,
Yeah.
and the gang values become your values. And then
Hmm.
the gang values are if somebody disrespects you, you shoot him.
Hmm.
Do fathers teach that to kids?
No.
No. Well, and I believe that when you have 74% of black children growing up in a home without a father, the gang becomes a surrogate family. Becomes the family unit, and the gang values become your
Mhm.
values. And I believe that's a huge part, the primary reason why there's so much violence among the black youth in the community. And every year, the FBI, I haven't done it this year, it won't come out for another month. But you know that 56% of the homicide victims in this country are African American? They're 12.5% of the population, and they represent 56% of the people who get
Yeah.
shot. And 53% of the assailants are African Americans. I mean, it's just astounding that such a small segment of the population is responsible for more than half the murder, the homicides in this
Mhm.
country. It's just sad. It's astounding and sad at the same time. But that unfortunately is where we are today. Anything you want to add before we move on?
I just think in general, I see the new, watch the evening news and like what things that have happened just, with the Knicks and stuff and did your mother teach you these? Like,
Yeah,
I
to
just
set
can't believe the
fires.
behavior of people the younger generation today, period.
Yeah, setting fire to school buses and burning taxi
Yeah.
cabs, and yeah, yeah. I think they burned 5 school buses and set fire to a couple of taxi cabs. It was just, yeah. God, come on,
And the
come on.
people that think it's okay to just even behave certain ways in public and like you just don't do that.
Right. No, you don't. And so you got to shake your head. Where are your values? Who taught you
Mhm.
to act like that? Or anyway, or who told you? Anyway, it's just
And
sad.
that
Where
doesn't have anything to do with race or I mean
no,
I see you watch the evening news and it's people of
yeah,
all ethnicities.
yeah. And one more thing I want to add. I think I've mentioned this before. When I was 15, 16, working summers on the farm, I every 15-year-old kid on the road where my grandparents from, everybody had access. I'd say to the guy that I was working with, baling hay, I said, "Hey, you want to go shoot some woodchucks after dinner?" Because there was only
Yeah.
one TV, and it was like he'd say, "Yeah." I said, "Well, come back after dinner." And every one of those kids could show up with a rifle at 6:30.
Mhm.
But you'd see every single one of them in church on Sunday. Every
Yeah.
single one of them in church. Today, I think less than 25% of teenagers go to church on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing that has changed. All right. I want to move on to the stupidest thing I've heard all week. Don't know how much you know about guns. Do you know what have seen these guns that have you can mount a light under the barrel?
Yeah, they help you see what you're shooting at.
Yeah, in the dark. Yeah, and it's almost standard equipment for every police officer.
Yeah.
And do you know what a red dot sight is?
Yeah, it helps you aim better.
Yeah, it goes on top of the gun,
Yeah.
and it allows you to, it's not a telescopic sight, it's just a little dot that you can look through, and it's
Mhm.
easier to use than
There's also green dots. There's red dots and green dots.
right. But it's a little optic. It's a
Yeah.
little holographic, and it replaces the iron sights.
Yeah.
And then there's some pistols, there's semi-automatic pistols that have an exposed hammer, and on some of those pistols, On some guns, you can pull the trigger, long, hard pull, and the hammer will come back and then drop. And
Mhm.
some pistols, you have to manually cock the hammer. That's called a single action pistol, where for
Mhm.
the first shot, you have to cock the hammer with your thumb. After the first shot, the gun will recock itself. But the sheriff of Contra Costa County, California, which is where San Diego is, and again, concealed carry permits are issued by the county sheriff. Well, he's decided to just arbitrarily create some regulation. Now, these are not laws passed by the legislature, but these are the laws. And these regulations prohibit people within his county from having a concealed weapon that has any of the following: a gun mounted light, which is stupid because if you're going to be having to shoot somebody at night, you want to make sure that
You want to
what the
know who you're
person,
shooting at.
right, who you're shooting at, and is that a
It's
cell
essentially
phone?
just a flashlight.
Yeah, it's just a flashlight. It's just a flashlight under the barrel of the gun. Um, it's again standard for most law enforcement officers. He's banning all red dot sights on top of the gun, which
Which
simply are going to
again helps you aim
aim more accurately. And he's banned single action pistols. Now, let me say this: pistols like a Glock that don't have an exposed hammer, they're called striker fire. And how they work, instead of an exposed hammer that drops and hits the back of the bullet, they basically have a little short needle, like a nail, that's inside a spring.
better.
And when that gun is ready to go, that spring has been compressed. And when you pull the trigger, all you're doing is releasing the spring that lets that little pin go forward. Glocks are always cocked. And if you
Mhm.
simply snag the trigger of a Glock while you're putting it back, and say your shirt's sticking out over your holster and you push
Mhm.
that Glock back into your holster and your shirt gets snagged in the trigger where the trigger is, the gun's going to go off because it's cocked and it has no safety.
Yeah.
He has banned single action pistols that has a hammer that has to be cocked and have manual safeties. Anyway, so three incredibly stupid rules. So he's being sued by the Second Amendment Foundation, along with the California Pistol and Rifle Association. Again, these are the three stupidest. There is no rhyme or reason that, as somebody who owns guns and shoots, I cannot. Again,
I
why
mean,
would you ban?
isn't that even like the first rule of like shoot, you have to know what you're shooting at.
Right. And what helps you do that better in low light
Then a flashlight
than a
and a
flashlight? Yeah.
and something that helps put the dot where it needs to go.
Right. So that's to me the stupidest thing I've heard all week. These three arbitrary regulations that make no sense.
Mhm.
Anyway, hopefully that a judge will rule against that. And again, this isn't a law by the legislature. This is just the sheriff making up a regulation. He said, "Well, I issue concealed carry permits, and these are my rules." Well, sheriff, you're an idiot. All right. Let's go on to where you need an ID. Last month, the Obama Presidential Library opened in Chicago, and they have days when you can special half price or free admission for Illinois residents. But guess what? You have to have a photo ID. And here's a quote from the website, the library's website. You may reserve a ticket online or in person at the ticketing desk located in the museum lobby if tickets are still available. In other words, you can do them online in advance or in the lobby if they're available. But be prepared to show proof of residency at the museum. If you arrive and do not have a valid Illinois photo ID, you will have to pay full price for your ticket. Now, this is the same party that is fighting the SAVE Act to show voting. So you have to have if you want a discount ticket to the Obama Library, you have to have a photo ID, but you don't have to have photo ID if you want to vote in Illinois. So, all right. All right. I want to move on to Tulsi Gabbard, who up until, well, for the remainder of this month, she's the director of national intelligence. She's been doing a great job, but her husband has cancer. So she's announced that she's going to be resigning at the end of June to be with her husband who's fighting cancer. Um, and remember, Dr. Anthony Fauci was questioned by Congress about his role. Did he assist? Was there any CDC money going to the Wuhan lab in China? He
Mhm.
denied all this and blah, blah, blah. We had nothing to do with it. Well, it turns out he did. He lied. He lied to Congress. Now, remember Biden in his last couple of weeks in office issued like 1,000 pardons?
Yes.
One of
Yeah.
those pardons was Dr. Anthony Fauci.
I
And I
remember
won't
that.
play, yeah, and I won't play the whole 5-minute clip. But here's the first 90 seconds of Tulsi Gabbard explaining, and she's got a pile of documents next to her, and she's explaining what she's found and what she's making public.
For the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in US taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain of function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic. Now, in support of President Trump's maximum transparency mandate, today, on my final day as Director of National Intelligence, I'm releasing never before seen communications and documents that expose exactly how Fauci worked with politicized career leadership in the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions, the virus's lab leak origins, and his role in directing US funding for this dangerous research that caused immeasurable harm and countless lost lives. Now, these documents expose Fauci's direct role in influencing and manipulating IC assessments on COVID-19.
By the way, IC is in intelligence community, and she's saying how he tried to influence the intelligence community assessment. So I'm gonna here we go.
IC assessments on COVID-19 and how Fauci lied to Congress in 2024 when under oath he denied knowledge of or participation in discussions with intelligence officials about viral research. We also received testimony from multiple intelligence community whistleblowers who reported retaliation for challenging the intelligence community's manipulation of intelligence on the virus's origins, once again revealing a clear pattern of suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and burying the truth.
And I'm going to stop it there. This goes on for 5 minutes, and I urge people, if you just want to Google it, just do Tulsi Gabbard Fauci, you'll find the video. It's a 5 minute and 20-second video. But he clearly committed perjury. He clearly covered up, but he can never be prosecuted for that. By the way, in the United States, over 1 million people died from the coronavirus, and worldwide, its estimate is 7 million, although we don't have any numbers from China, so it's probably closer to 10 million. But again, 1 million people died from the coronavirus or
Yeah.
COVID, if you will. And Fauci was funneling money to the Wuhan virology lab in China and then lying about it to Congress. So, his hands are, not only dirty, they're bloody. He just sat there and boldface lied to Congress, but Biden pardoned him. So he can never be prosecuted for his role in the creation of the COVID virus or lying to Congress. So, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a very controversial issue with many of our listeners, but yeah, I mean the flat out lie
Yep.
and the double jeopardy, I guess it's kind of a form of double jeopardy
Yeah.
is
Well,
why they can't be
once
prosecuted.
you've been pardoned, he can no, no. Could the International Crime Court in the Hague,
Mhm.
prosecute him? Maybe, but I doubt they'd ever do that.
I mean,
But
at
he's
this
been,
point, he's retired and has moved on,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. All right. Let's move on to the UK. Now, you heard that Keir Starmer, the president of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is resigning.
yeah, they've been through a lot, I feel like.
Well, he is the sixth, and when his sixth in the last 10 years, and when his successor is named here sometime in the next 30 days, they will have had seven prime ministers in less than 10 years. Now, let me ask you a
Yeah.
question: can any organization, public or private, have a chance of achieving its strategic goals if you have a change in leadership every
No,
seven
you
months?
can't. You
Yeah.
can't. And it has you have to ask, like, what is wrong? Why are people resigning so quickly?
Well, but I'll tell you why he's relying by the country is in shambles. I'm going to give you some examples why it's in shambles. And people, are blaming the leader. It's not the leader. It's that he and all of his successors are from the Labor Party, which is the Liberal
Mhm.
Party, and his replacement is also going to be from the Labor Party because right now the Labor Party has a majority uh, in their with the equivalent of their Congress.
Mhm.
So they keep blaming the head guy, but it's really their party. Let me tell you, here's some statistic how bad the UK is and why nobody can succeed. you know, one measure of economic success is per capita GDP, gross domestic
Yep.
product.
Mhm.
Um, Brits were asked, where do you think the UK, ranks in terms of US states? They thought, well, we're probably right up there with the fifth or sixth. We're probably right up there with California or Texas. No, if you rank them against all US states, they come in 51.
Wow.
The the US state with the lowest per capita income is Mississippi with 56,000. The
Mhm.
UK is at 53,000. They have
Wow.
less per capita income per capita, when I say income, GDP is production, the
Mhm.
value of what goods and services you produce. And here's part of the reason. Their cost of electricity is 36 cents per kilowatt hour plus a 20% VAT tax. You know what a VAT tax is?
That's basically like a federal tax.
It's a federal sales tax.
Value, it stands for value added tax.
Right. It's a federal sales tax. So,
Yeah.
there are half a dozen states in the United States where your electricity is 11 between 11 and
Mhm.
12, between 11 and 14 cents. When you add that 20% VAT tax on, you're over 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, here's what happens. Steel, for instance, steel is an incredibly energy intensive product to make. You can't make steel competitively at 40 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
You think you can run an AI data center competitively at 40 cents a kilowatt hours?
Not, no.
So you're not going to have any steel production. You're not going to have AI data center. You're not going to have any industry that requires, electricity. Now, here's more irony. 5 years ago, they banned all coal-fired power plants, shut them down. And so what did they do instead? Well, they now generate 8% of their electricity by burning processed wood pellets. You've seen these wood stoves, right? Where you buy a bag of
Yeah.
wood pellets. Well, 76% of the wood pellets they burn are imported from the US. And how do you think those wood pellets get to Great Britain from the US? Does a transport ferry just magically transport them
No,
over
they put them on big ships.
on big ships that operate on diesel fuel? Right. Um, And by the way, how much energy does it take to create those wood pellets and then ship them across the ocean? And how much CO2 is released when you burn them? Well,
Yeah.
guess what? At least as much CO2 as when you burn coal. And they generate almost half their power from natural gas, which of course is a fossil fuel. And where do they get their natural gas since they don't have any domestically? They buy it
Probably
from
from us.
Russia. And they
Right. Yeah.
also buy power from France and Norway. There are big power cables under the English Channel. They also buy electric power from France and Norway, which also produce electric power by burning natural gas that they buy from who? Russia.
Yep.
So that's why the UK is in the mess that it's in. Their GDP per capita is lower than all 50 states, including Mississippi. Their electricity is 4 times more expensive than what it is in the United States, which means you can't produce things like steel or operate data centers or any other energy intensive business. And they're buying wood pellets from the United States to make electricity. And as long as the Labor Party's in power, they're going to be stuck in that same thing, and they're never going to get out. It's going to be, I don't give the next guy, I don't give him 18 months either. Do you see any way out of this for the Labor Party?
No, and there was we talked about this many episodes ago, and I can't remember the name of the website, but there's a website where you can look up what each state's average electricity kilowatt hour is, and the United States is anywhere between 10 to 20 cents.
Yep. Well, except in California, I think, yeah, California's on the like 23, but yeah,
Yeah, but
I'm
most
here
every state is in the somewhere in the teens.
somewhere in the team. I'm in New Jersey, really high. I'm at like 17 cents, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of
and
states under.
Pennsylvania
Yeah,
is too.
I'm in a lot of states are under 14, and the states that are under 14 are going to get the energy intensive industries. All right. How much time we got?
You have about 10 minutes.
All right, good, because this is going to take a while. I want to talk about something very, very important. I'm already on Social Security. I don't know how many years till, but a lot of people are either
I got a ways to go.
okay. But here's the problem. So every year, the trustees of the Social Security Trust Fund, which by the way still has $2.5 trillion in it, but every year they issue, and it's a trust fund, and that 2.5 trillion is not cash sitting in a vault. They invest that money into U.S. Treasury, interest-bearing U.S. Treasury bonds, And last year, those bonds uh, added $63 billion in earned interest back into the fund. All right, because now when they need cash, they simply redeem those bonds. But last year, despite having 2.5 trillion in 2.5 trillion in that fund, I got to turn this phone down. It's not for me. And 2.5 trillion in the trust fund, there's still more cash going out to benefits and administrative overhead than coming in. So the fund ran a $200 billion deficit, which they had to cover by taking money out of the trust fund. Well, when you shrink the size of the trust fund, which is earning interest, what happens to the amount of interest you earn?
It goes down.
It goes down.
You
So
get
what
less.
the so it's kind of a death spiral that okay, we're dipping into the trust fund to cover the shortfall, but because we're dipping into the trust fund, the amount of interest we're going to earn next year is going to be less than last year, which means the deficit is going to be the cash for it is going to be bigger and bigger. We have to borrow more. Anyway, they're saying that by the fourth quarter of 2032, and how far away is the fourth quarter of 2032?
Not the we're talking 6 years.
6 years in 6 years and 3 months, 6 years and 4 months, the entire 2.5 trillion is going to be gone. It's going to be used
Mhm.
up. It's going to be used up to cover the deficit. And if something isn't done, once that is done, there'll only be enough cash coming in from payroll contributions to pay out promised benefits at the rate of 78 cents on the dollar.
Mhm.
Now, why is this something that didn't have to be there? The current FICA contribution rate is 7.65% each, 7.65% from you and 7.65% from your employer for a total of 15.3%. All right. Now, of the 7.65% that's coming from you, 6.2% is going into Social Security, and the other 1.45% is going to fund Medicare, which is also operating an annual loss. Uh, but anyway, so why are our gutless politicians in Congress making a bad situation? Well, there's a chart that you will find in that report, and producer student, if you can put a link to this report up,
Absolutely. Yep.
you'll find that the first contributions into the program began in 1937 at a combined rate of 2%. It was 1% from the employee and 1% from the employer. And however, starting in 1950, Congress began to increase that withholding rate every 1 to 4 years in order to keep the program net cash flow positive. By the way, in 1950, you had 15 working contributors to every one beneficiary. You know what that ratio is today?
It's not nearly as good as it should be.
Try 2.6 to 1.
Yeah.
Oh no, so Congress, to compensate for that shifting of contributors to beneficiaries, kept bumping the rate. And every 1 to 4, they would bump the rate. So to keep the program net, they bumped that rate 23 times from 1937 to 1990. It was a regular thing. Okay, we're going to bump it 0.5%. We're going to bump it literally every 1 to 3 years, they'd bump it 0.5%. They'd bump it a half, and they did that 23 times up until 1990, when the combined contribution rate had grown to 12.4%. I'm not talking just the Social Security portion, which is 6.2% from you and 6.2% for your employer. Now, you know how many times in the past 30, that was 1990, today's 2026. That's 36 years. You know how many times they've bumped the contribution rate in the last 36 years?
I don't think that they have.
They haven't. So they went from bumping it literally almost every year by 0.5%. They haven't increased the contribution rate even once in
Mhm.
36 years.
Yeah.
Now, had they made just a tiny 0.5% adjustment each, in other words, they instead of 6.2, they said, hey, Susan, it's going to be 6.7. Had they done that a decade ago, they would have moved the program out of an annual cash deficit back into an annual cash surplus. And why is that such an important factor in the health of the program? Well, again, they're required to invest that into the treasury bonds and it generates interest. Had they done that, that $2.5 trillion trust fund would be over 3 trillion and we'd be earning more interest. And
Mhm.
the program keeps itself healthy. So where are we now? Because at no time in the past 36 years did Congress have the guts to propose or pass, not even, they didn't even, it wasn't even proposed. Nobody said, hey, we should do this. And it got defeated. No, nobody even
Mhm.
proposed it. Had they increased that current 6.2% by just that mere zero point 0.5, uh, the program would be healthy today. Now, if Congress did something January, effective January of this coming year, you would have to move the contribution. FICA would have to increase from 7.65 to 9. But is Congress going to do that?
Nope.
No. So what happens if they wait till the very last minute, till the end of
It's
2031?
going to be a huge, it's going to be a huge increase.
They're going to have to bump it by 4.2% each. Your contribution is going to go from 6.7, 6.5
Mhm.
to 12%. 12, because Congress is gutless.
Mhm.
All right. Um, and I guarantee you, it's one of these things, the longer you wait, the more painful the correction. It's like an infection. You wait too long
Mhm.
to amputate your leg because Congress was gutless. They didn't adjust it a 0.5% over a decade ago, which would have been so painless, nobody would have noticed. They're not going to do it this year, which would be 1.35%. They're going to wait till the very last minute and say, well, folks, well, the other alternative is say, well, you can't you can't collect full retirement at 67. You got to wait till age 68 or 69, which is always an option, but I doubt they'll do that either. So in 2032, get ready to see your FICA contribution jump from 7.6% to 12.
Yep.
And that's where we are today. All right. We got time for taxpayer relief shot?
You have about 4 minutes.
All right. Barely enough time for taxpayer relief shot. All right. I won't do the intro, but here we go. Homeowner confronts two armed intruders, and let's see who spent more time at the range.
Developing now, there are still questions this morning about a shooting that left a person dead in Lantana last night.
The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, John, says a man returned to his home, and found two suspects inside. News Channel 5's Chris Stewart is here live this morning with what we're waiting to learn. Chris.
Well, it's not clear at this point, really, what led up to this shooting in Lantana last night. We do know that the homeowner and both suspects fired weapons and that both suspects were shot. One of them is dead. Take a look at.
Did you hear that? The homeowner and both suspects fired shots.
Mm-hmm.
But who got hit? I'm going to back this up. Who got hit? Yeah.
Were shot. One of them is dead. Take a look at the scene last night. This shooting happening just after 8:30 on Hibiscus Tree Drive in Lantana, that is east of I-95. PBSO says when the homeowner found the two suspects in the home, there was an altercation and both suspects were shot. Again, one died, the other sent to a local hospital. It's not clear what that suspect's condition is at this time. The homeowner is uninjured.
Both suspects were shot. One died. The homeowner is uninjured.
Is okay. Detectives are continuing to work this case. It's still not clear at this point whether they believe this was a random incident. Reporting live, Chris Stewart, WPTV News Channel 5.
So, folks, remember, when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
Yep.
If you do own a gun or you decide to get a gun, owning a gun in and of itself is not enough because both of those thugs had guns. They both shot at the homeowner. They both missed the homeowner. It was 2-on-1. The homeowner obviously was a better shot. So if you have a gun, folks, you need to practice with it. Just owning a gun, is not enough. If you're going to own a gun, don't go halfway. If you own it, you should shoot it, on a regular basis to stay proficient. Because if you get in a gunfight with some bad guys,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are better marksmen are gonna live, and the people who are poor or not as good are going to die. Before we wind up, producer Susan, anything you want to add about anything we talked about today?
Yeah, no, I think one of the Social Security, I mean, that is something that every single American who has a job, not under the table, we're all paying. That is the government's retirement plan for us. That is our money that we're getting back when we turn 65. They're also not compensating for the fact that people are living longer.
Yeah, the average life expectancy in this has gone to. By the way, here's another. When Social Security was first enacted in 1937, the average life expectancy was age 66.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's age 78, so it's gone up by 12 years. However, the age to collect full retirement has only gone up by 2 years, from 65 to 67. You can collect at 65, but you collect at a reduced amount.
Yeah.
So the age for so when your life expectancy increases by 12 years, but the age to collect full benefits only collect by 2 years, of course you're going to run a deficit, which is where we are. And again, Congress could have fixed the problem by making minor adjustments, over a decade ago, but no, they were gutless. Nobody wanted to propose it. Nobody wanted to vote for it. So here we are, a crisis being created by Congress, and whatever solution they come up with, the longer they wait, the more painful it's going to be.
Mhm.
Anyway, hopefully you can post those links.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right. Anything else before we sign off?
Nope.
All right, folks, thanks for getting up 30 minutes of your time to listen to me. If you want to see some of the materials you heard me talk about today, you give producer Susan a day or two. You'll find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. That's JERZEEJOE, jerzeejoe.com, no space. If you'd like me to email you any of those links directly, just send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com, or if you have any questions, or if you'd like to suggest a show topic, or you'd like to get on our distribution list for the weekly podcast, again, just email me at joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and two E's. And with that, producer Susan, if nothing else, I'll sign off and talk to you next week.
Gonna go mow my lawn.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.